So welcome back to the vast and ominous Comic Vault. Today, we're going to be doing things a little bit differently, and this is our plan for the foreseeable future with the Comic Vault. We're not going to tackle just one thing. We're not even just going to tackle pulls and new acquisitions. Today, we're going to tackle a whole bunch of different things. We're going to do some trades. All of the comics. We're going to do some trades. We're going to do some select pulls of things that I have recently read.
And I've got two things as well.
As I mentioned earlier, I have a whole bunch, of new issues. I have a whole bunch of stuff that I just haven't gotten to yet, but I'm going to be real selective about what I actually review. So probably 3 or 4 or 5 issues a week is my plan right now, and I'll go real lickety-split, just tell you what I thought about things. But before that happens, we're gonna jump right into today's featured book of the week. Featured book of the week, and our featured book this time was chosen by Eric. And Eric, we're gonna do something that I don't believe I've ever done outside of Spawn Year, which is review a manga. Yeah, this is what the omnibus is leading us to, folks. Stuff we never would think to just post a video of on its own with the both of us read. Eric read this, he put it in front of me, he said, hey, read that for omnibus, will you? And I was like, yes, sir. Absolutely. And we did. So I read, and Eric read, My Hero Academia, the first volume. And how old is this? Because you said this is a newer series.
It's a couple of years old. So
these are coming out fast.
The anime, manga comes out 3 or 4 times a year. These volumes come out.
And this is part of Shonen Jump.
This is part of Shonen Jump, where one of these chapters comes out every week.
Yeah.
Because
it's
they're
nuts.
really dedicated.
It's absolutely nuts. And I mean, like, we can talk about this a little bit, the manga style versus American style. Obviously, if you've read a manga before, they read backwards. I learned this doing Spawn Year. That was my first introduction to that.
Oh, I did not realize that.
Yeah, I opened up the first book of the 3-book Spawn manga series, and Violator tells you to not read it that way. He says, flip it over, read it the other way. It's fantastic.
Almost all mangas have that. This one also has a read this way.
Yeah. Really nice, and this tells you the panel layout too.
Yep.
It says, you got to go from up to, and they're like, Japanese people are backwards.
I'm pretty sure all Shonen
That's a joke. I'm not saying that.
I'm pretty sure all Shonen Jump books do that. I don't know if all manga does that, but that's pretty standard. Is you put something here that says, hey, by the way, you're reading it wrong. Gundam Wing doesn't do that, but I'll talk about how Gundam Wing doesn't care about the people reading it when we get to that. When I get to that.
So, let's just break this down real fast and give a quick synopsis of this premise. Really interesting and super fun, quirky premise.
Yeah. It's a world where a couple of generations ago, I want to say we are 3 or 4 generations into this world.
Yeah. Somebody mentioned being 4th generation.
Yeah. A baby is born that is, I think, glowing. And from that point on, people are born with superpowers. And by the time we get to this book, it is a world where 90% of people are born with some kind of superpower.
It's a big mystery as to why. Nobody knows why, and they have something to do. Like, it has something to do with that baby, but we don't know what it is. I'm sure it's a mystery that'll be solved.
I don't know if it will be. Like,
really?
That might just be a conceit.
A conceit, yeah.
Just this is how we get to the world where everyone's superheroes.
Yeah, and it seems to be connected somehow to personality traits. Like that seems to
sometimes,
help, but not always.
Not always,
because it's discussed. Where some people are wondering about that. Like people are kind of trying to figure it out.
Because it does seem like but then you have the question of what comes first. Do you develop your personality based on what your trait is?
Yeah.
Or your quirk? They're called quirks.
Sure. Just like how much does your name define?
Yeah. And so we have a world where everyone has superpowers, from being able to shoot fire and have like powers like Superman to being able to move like that DVD case to my hand telekinetically, like small telekinesis.
That was one that I picked up on that I was reading. But there's this girl who seems almost like ashamed of her power. He's like, I can make tiny objects come at me.
His mom can do that.
Oh, okay. I thought it was like a little girl or something.
There's a girl that he meets in school that can move things, but she's got it much more than his mom. His mom can literally just bring, like, if she drops her cell phone, she can bring it back to her hand.
It's hilarious.
So it's a world where almost everyone has
and then
powers.
there's the guy with that shoots lasers from his belly button.
Yes.
Remember that?
Yep. Oh, he's all through it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I thought that was just a throwaway character.
Nope. They're all... So we're going to talk about this book, but I'm going to talk a little bit about the other books too, not in any depth, but just kind of an overview.
Yeah, please don't, because let me say, I really enjoyed this, and I would like to read more of it.
Awesome,
I think.
awesome. That's really cool.
Obviously, there are some things that are counter to my sensibilities, but overall, like it's a really fun premise. What I love about this is how bombastic and bold it is, and how much it just doesn't care if you if it's not for you or not. Like, it hopes there's an audience, and I mean, like, the guy who wrote this even says this at the beginning, where he's just like, I'm just writing things that I want to read. I hope other people like it too. Like, it's really like I said, it's really bold. Every page is just super dynamic.
But so it's a world full of superheroes, and our main character, Midoriya.
So I jumped ahead. I'm just reviewing now.
Yeah,
Sorry,
that's
our main I didn't know you were going to do more synopsis.
Well,
Go ahead.
I just, to give the initial setup, it's a world full of superheroes, and our main character, our lead character, Midoriya, idolizes All Might, who's kind of the Superman of the world.
And this kid has no superpowers at all.
He has no powers. We're told that the tell is superheroes are kind of the next step in human evolution, and the tell is your pinky toe, because you don't actually need your pinky toe. So if it's one bone, you have quirks, and if it's two bones, you don't have quirks.
80% of the population has superpowers, which creates a whole bunch of madness and chaos. And some people are villains, and some people are heroes. And then you have 20% of the population that doesn't have anything.
Yeah, and he wants to be a superhero. And there is a superhero school that you can go. There are many superhero schools you can go to, and there's also licensing deals and things like that. And he wants to be a hero, and I think it's at the end of the first chapter. I know it's at the end of the first episode of the anime. I think it's at the end of the first chapter where he goes, oh, by the way, this is the story of how I became the greatest hero in the world. And then you see how he gets powers, and then you see him go to school, and he works really hard for everything.
You know what I love about this book? It's all about work ethic.
Yes, it is, absolutely.
He earns everything he gets, and it's about being entitled for the right reasons. It's about earning that. It's like when he.
That's the main reason I thought you would like this book.
Yeah. I just think it's a really good lesson for kids. Like, I think kids should read this book. And maybe there's some stuff later where and there's some over-sexualization and stuff. That's an issue. Someone needs to tell me if this girl is wearing anything at all under from the waist down, because
I mean, it's just a skin tight costume.
Oh, is that all that is?
Yeah.
Because it just really looks like she doesn't have underwear.
No, and there's a character later that looks like she's almost topless, and it's like, no, it's just skin tight. It's hard to tell
like Jean Grey in the
white.
90s.
Yes, exactly like that. It's just she's on the back of one of these. Let me real quick. This one.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Cool. We don't feel the need to show you that. And we
I just did.
Felt the need to show you that. Anyway.
But yeah,
I'm the only person on camera.
So it is it's a coming-of-age story about a character becoming a superhero, but it's not just I got powers and now what do I do with them? He earns it every step of the way, and that's consistent through the whole series as he keeps.
Yeah, it's a really classic underdog story. I like the way it reflects how the guy writing it seems to feel about his own sensibilities versus what's mainstream. That was the big thing I took from this, because, and now, to be fair, if there weren't little letters and things written in here from him, I wouldn't get that from it. So obviously that's not in the work. It's also because of outside third-party knowledge I have. But I'm like, okay, it's in the book and that it was written in here, but it's not part of the story. But he talks about how, like, when he created All Might, everybody told him, well, that's not a hero that looks like anybody could look up to him. I don't know if you read that.
Yeah, I did.
And he was like, but I think he looks cool, so I'm going to put him in there anyway. And then that character ends up being all about how you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, and about how, like, it's not it's not about what you look like on the outside. It's about the choices you make, your attitude. I really like that he has to puff himself up to get mighty. Like it is his superpower. He is able to get bulky and mighty, but there's this kind of metaphor for so it's like this internalized thing that becomes physical.
Well,
and
that's
really
not
cool.
the way it's always been.
Oh, is it not?
No, when he lifts up his shirt and he shows how damaged he is, he used to always be like this.
Okay.
It is recently
so then
he has had a major injury that lets him only be able to be that way a certain amount of time during the day.
Well, I might be reading that part wrong then.
And that keeps decreasing as the series goes on. And he also spits blood, and that's hilarious. He'll just be in the middle of a really inspiring sentence. Just I
just think it's interesting, the balancing act. Where this book is about the things that you want to be able to do that you're not able to do, but also like having dreams that are far out of your reach and how far you should go to achieve them or not. Like there's a realism to it, but there's also an idealism to it.
It's the difference between if you try hard enough you can do anything and wish upon a star.
Yeah. It's in the middle somewhere, like, because I don't think this book is saying that this kid could be the greatest superhero without superpowers. He does have to actually get something he doesn't possess. Like, if he didn't get lucky enough to meet this guy, he wouldn't have that. But it's that whole, like, Spider-Man Homecoming thing of if you like if the suit is what makes you great, you don't deserve the suit. But backwards in that he's Captain America. Like, he earns it from the beginning. Actually, it is very much like movie Captain America in that, like, he insists on trying to do this, and he's just not physically able. But like, because he's willing to risk himself and he always puts himself in harm's way to save people, then he's worthy of the powers. I also really love the commentary on this about the two sides to superheroing. You have the beating the bad guy side, and you have the saving people side, and those are not. Those are sometimes kind of almost mutually exclusive. I think it's really interesting. You have two characters in this that are the opposite sides, where he literally going to superhero school and taking the test gets 0 points for villainy, and this other guy gets 0 points for rescuing, and they both have something the other kid needs, but he doesn't. He has all the heart and none of the fighting chutzpah.
And there's
sorry, that was long.
And you'll see as you go through the series, there are heroes who are solely or primarily rescue heroes. They are not about fighting bad guys. They are about saving people.
Interesting. So you kind of need both, because like we always think of being a superhero about saving people, and like, yeah, you save people inherently by beating a bad guy who's trying to hurt people, but they are also sometimes kind of two different things, aren't they?
Mm-hmm. I mean, that was a point that was made in Fraction's Iron Man with Rescue. She is designed solely for the purpose of protecting people, not for fighting.
Yeah. And wanting to fight people, enjoying that anyway, can come from the wrong place. You can be a superhero for the wrong reason.
Which is demonstrated in Bakugo, who's kind of the school bully.
Right. He seemed a little typical to me. He was a little Flash Thompson.
Yeah. But he's kind of legitimately a crazy person. I really like him because he makes me laugh. There's a point where they come up with superhero names, and his first attempt is King Explosion, like Murder Death King or something like that.
Yeah, that's acceptable in Japan. You can get away with that there. I think.
And they're like, well, that's not really superhero-y. And he's and this kind of gets fleshed out, but his view of heroism is you are strong enough to beat the bad guys, and that's all he cares about. He has to be the strongest. And Deku or Midoriya, a lot of these characters have multiple names.
Mm-hmm. I noticed that.
So, like, I kind of stick to the ones that I call them by, which can be confusing, and some of them are just really long Japanese names and things like that. And later they get superhero names, and those are easier for me to remember, so I'll stick to those. Like, there's the girl whose name I have trouble remembering. I think it's Ochaka or Ochako, but her superhero name is Uravity, which is her name mixed with gravity, and so I just call her that because I can remember that. There's a lot of that.
That's great.
But
some of the superhero names at the end were really fun.
Yeah. I love some of the superhero names.
Some of the costumes are I don't usually say badass.
Yeah, there's some really cool costumes.
Now, did I look at this right? They am I right that they don't reveal what his costume is at the end of this? They make that kind of a cliffhanger, like, or do they show it to you?
Let me see.
Because I was looking at trying to figure out like what his costume was supposed to be.
No, it is a mystery.
It's a mystery.
Yep,
that's what I thought. Yeah,
you do not see it.
I just wondered if I looked at it wrong.
Yep, nope, you don't see it.
I should say, and some people are going to make fun of me for this because I'm not used to reading manga. I mean, I'm learning a lot doing this. People have tried to beg me for years to read more manga, watch more anime. Today, I'm going to help review both of those, a manga and an anime. Yeah, put it there, Eric. Thanks for showing me some stuff, and legitimately things I'm enjoying.
Yeah.
But I'm not used to reading like this, and some of where my eyes are supposed to go with the panels was difficult, and there were places where I wasn't actually sure if I was getting the words in the correct order. I'll see if I can find a good example. There were places where just, like, I know what direction you're supposed to go. Like this is pretty clear that you go here, like that way. But there's a couple places, you can't see what I'm showing Eric right now, but there are a couple of places where I wasn't exactly sure if I was supposed to look at, like, the next panel and then over, or so I wasn't sure if I was getting the dialogue in the correct order. But that's nothing against the book. I just got to get used to reading this way.
Yeah. It's weird because sometimes I have handed people manga because I've been reading manga since I was a kid.
Yeah.
It's sometimes I have handed people manga and they're like, "How do I read this?" I'm like, Oh, yeah. Okay, so you read backwards, and you go this way.
Do you ever, in going back and forth, accidentally go the wrong direction?
Yes.
When you're reading American comics? Or?
Usually not manga, because, like, I go into manga, like, thinking I have to read the other way, but sometimes if I'm reading a bunch of manga and then I go read an American comic, it confuses me.
Yeah,
I'm like, yeah, I'll start reading the panels backwards. I'm like, oh, wait, no, that's how you do it. I won't read the book backwards, but, like, I'll read the panels backwards.
Another thing that was distracting for me that I guess this is obligatory for me to bring this up, but and less so here than it has been in other things, is just how ultra exaggerated facial expressions are. I still have a really difficult time with that.
That's fair.
I'm getting more and more used to it, but it's just so blown out of proportion. That's the way we do it in Japan, and I'm still not used to it. We go from 0 to 100 in like that, where somebody just looks like as a normal person, almost understated facial expression, and then just something happens that surprises them, and it's like an atomic bomb god, like ah! and then you have like tears jumping out. You're like people are like people throw up when they don't like what they hear, and
There's a bit in the anime. I don't remember if it's actually in the manga. There's a bit in the anime where someone cries and they tilt their head back and it comes up like geysers. That's just how they do.
Yeah.
I was like, that's how I cry.
This is really over the top. It's really out there, and I mean, I guess that one didn't bother me as much as some other places because he's going through some stuff. Like he's pushing himself really hard.
But they've all got rubber face. And that's just kind of a manga conceit, unless you're looking at something that's intentionally being more Western, like Cowboy Bebop or Big O, or a couple of things like that, where they're intentionally trying to be. And
I have to say, I'm with it more with this guy than I have been with some other things because there's so much passion on the page. Mm-hmm. He just loves this world he's creating, and it's unabashed, and it's really confident.
Yeah. And the kind of in between
that covers such a multitude of sins, I think.
Yeah. Well, you could just feel like the enjoyment and the love of the work, and those in between chapter pages that he does. I love. At one point, he talks about how I don't actually have anything to put here, but when I was a kid, I hated it when I turned the page and there was nothing written there.
Yeah.
Because some mangas do that and some mangas don't, or sometimes they'll do it and sometimes
there's
they don't.
There's a lot of commentary on the medium here.
Yeah.
Certainly.
But
and he's playing around and experimenting some. I mean, maybe there's stuff here that you would recognize from other manga that because I haven't read a lot of that. But I feel like there's a little bit of experimenting in like how to use words to express things and stuff like that.
Yeah. But he'll start using the inter pages to start explaining certain like scientific things. Like, so he starts breaking down everyone's costumes. When everyone gets costumes, he's like, okay, this is how their costumes work. It makes no sense for people to sit down and discuss those things, but you get the information. And I really like that.
Something manga does that I think is really fun, that I haven't seen American comics do much, or if at all, and I think there's other manga that I've at least thumbed through that I've noticed does this, is if somebody is having like a memory or a flashback to something you've read already, they're remembering the exact panels that you looked at with the dialogue balloons in the same places.
That's all over this book.
This does a lot of that.
And it continues through.
Does it?
Yeah.
Do you not like that?
I don't mind it.
I think it's funny.
Yeah, no, I don't mind it. It's not something that I think of as inherently manga-y, but it shows up a lot in this.
Also, do these people know they're in a comic book? That's a question I had all over this.
No.
Okay, the reason I'm wondering is because there are a few places where there's discussion about how someone is drawn differently. I don't know if you noticed this.
It's specifically All Might, right? It's when he shows up, they're like, oh, he's drawn differently in person.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
what
I
does
think
that
that's
mean?
Just a weird turn of phrase or maybe a weird translation.
Okay, because he did clearly draw him differently. Like, he doesn't look like the rest of this book. It's almost like another artist came in and did him.
Yeah.
I also like that he has almost like a monster face. He looks scary, but he's like
he's
a really
always
altruistic
smiling.
guy. Yeah.
And there's a whole big thing about he's always smiling.
He's really creepy looking.
Yeah, and when he morphs down, he's creepy.
Well, he's more creepy when he morphs down. Yeah, no, he looks like Victor Zsasz when he morphs down.
I love when he morphs down.
Yeah, he's mortifying. But yeah, this is a really endearing hero, most certainly. I could see someone complaining that he's maybe a little too perfect. He does kind of have that Captain America thing, but like he's the world does keep challenging him, but I never really get the sense that he's really challenged physically, but I never really get the sense that he's tempted or anything. I mean, maybe we'll get more of that as we move along. And like he's gonna have to learn to be tougher is kind of the sense I get. The main thing he hasn't figured out yet is like maybe he's almost like too altruistic or docile or something. Like I get the sense that the idea is he's going to have to get a little bit of that kid's, like, knowing how to fight the bad guys in him too. But you've read more of this, so I don't know.
And there is that. There's discussion of, because there's a point where he's talking about how everyone else has earned what they've gotten, and he hasn't. Because, well, I only got this because you gave me this, and they helped me out, and this person helped me, and he, like, in some ways can't see his own will, even though he's done all of this stuff and earned all of this.
He's too hard on himself.
He's too hard on himself, and he does.
Yeah, that's weird because, like, other people have earned it in you know the grueling tests and things, but he's the only person that had to actually earn his superpowers. Like, yeah, somebody gave it to him, but because of what he did.
When he cleans the whole beach.
Yeah.
And like that final moment where he's just ripped and just like, like, I'm like, oh, you really earned this. Like, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Or I wouldn't have been able to accomplish that.
Yeah, was it worth it?
And
he knows how studious he is, too.
Well, and All Might lays out an itinerary, and he goes above it, and he's like, no, you understand. I laid out an itinerary to your physical limitations, and your doing more will like, legitimately, like, hurt you as a person.
Yeah, so it's about knowing your limitations.
Yeah.
At the same time, as I said earlier, it's about going for those really, like hard to reach, dreams.
And we get a tournament arc a little bit later, that kind of explores how he needs to be able to kind of fight his friends and be a little bit more selfish in certain ways.
Yeah.
He needs to be able to focus on himself and not always put everyone before himself. In a good way, not in a bad way.
Yeah, it's not cynical about that.
Yeah.
It's just you have to take
this
care of yourself.
This is what you have to do to be able to get forward.
Take care of someone else.
Yeah.
That stuff resonated with me a lot. I mean, I feel like this guy's philosophy is kind of my philosophy, and so that's part of why it resonated with me. And I don't think it's preachy about that necessarily.
No, one of the things I really like about this...
It's not subtle about it, but I don't think these things tend to be. Like,
no.
There are places where it kind of comes right out and says what the moral of the story is, but it's that kind of melodrama, I think it gets away with it.
And manga tends to be more overtly philosophical in the... We are going to discuss what is what this means.
Yeah.
And what you represent, what I represent.
And it is consistently that. It's that kind of piece. So if you don't like that, you're not going to like this piece.
One of the things I really like about this, and I think really resonates with me about this, is actually something I'm not getting in superhero comics, which is that they're heroes and they're inspiring and that it's discussed and like that you get to see people be inspired by these heroes.
Yeah.
And very little American comics are doing that anymore. Because we're so into the main characters' heads, and we're so about making them flawed, and they have to be human, so they have to be borderline bad people sometimes.
And we're reading a lot of things right now that are about that. This is pushing against that too.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is some of that pushback against modern cynicism.
Yeah.
You will hear me say that phrase 5 or 6 times tonight with different things that we're reviewing, because that's. I mean, those are a lot of our fears right now. Is that are we so about ourselves and thinking that no one is out for anyone else, that we're losing something. As a society, comics are pushing back against that hard right now.
And you will get there's a character much later who is a superhero serial killer. And his whole thing is that all of these people aren't really heroes.
Yeah.
They're in this for the fame.
And there's already a lot of talk about like what a hero actually is. And I get the sense that, again, sort of like with Captain America, this kid's really kind of the only one, maybe is the sense I get.
Some of the other kids in his class are also pretty on the up and up. Or on their way.
But I guess I'm thinking just like a lot of the adult heroes aren't. It's like they've already lost something.
When you really meet the number 2 hero, whose name I can't recall because it's not a great name.
It's that you grow up in realism equals cynicism.
Yeah. When you get to the number 2 hero, who's a fire-based hero and has a beard full of flames, he's a terrible person. And it's kind of a bummer that he's the number 2 hero of this world. I also love their teacher, who's just... I feel like he's supposed to be like a realistic Batman, where like he's a night-based hero, so when he shows up, he's so tired all the time.
Yeah, and he's really trying. He's kind of relentless, and I really enjoyed that bit where he where like he acts like he's bluffing about dropping a kid. Whatever kid doesn't manage this task, I'm gonna drop. Oh no! Like whoever's the lowest in the class, and then he's like, "No, I didn't intend on doing that. After all, I just said that to make you work harder." No, he absolutely was gonna do that.
Because we're told that the previous year he flunked the entire class on the first day,
and he just didn't because he saw so much potential in this kid.
Yeah.
And he was last, even though he got some points. Also, his relationship with that girl is really interesting.
Which one?
Midoriya's
the
one I sense is probably going to be the love interest.
Uravity, yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Oh, is that who that is? Okay, yeah.
She's the one that can lift things with her
I like
mind.
her.
Yeah, me too.
Right away.
I like her as well. I love that his resolution to the throwing thing is, because this is a thing that you'll see him do where he starts to find his limits, because we see him go immediately to 100% and he just goes ragdoll and his arms are like flailing behind him, and it's in the anime it's hilarious.
I'll have to watch that. That sounds like fun.
Yeah, you should. It's all on Hulu. The whole first season's dubbed and
is
subbed.
the dub okay?
The dub's not bad. I've watched most of what I watched sub, but I watched the first 2 episodes dubbed, and it's pretty good. I love
me. I tend to prefer sub.
Yeah,
but,
absolutely.
Or, excuse me. Yes.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. First thing, subtitle.
But all of it's up on Hulu subbed. The first season is up on Hulu dubbed, so you can watch it either way. But I love that his resourcefulness, where so if he uses this power, it will destroy his body, and so there's this not an obstacle course. What do you call that? Like you have to do different things at different points. Like you throw a ball here, you throw a javelin here, you run a what are those called?
Yeah, it's like, I know what you're talking about.
It's just like a bunch of different events.
Basically an
and he has to do
different events.
He has to do really well in at least one of them, and the one that he chooses to do really well in is throwing the ball. He's like, okay, if I give everything, my entire body's gonna like be destroyed, and so he puts it all.
It's not a triathlon.
Yeah, it's something like that.
Anyway, yeah.
But he puts all of his power into his finger, so he throws it really far, but the only thing that's damaged on him is his finger.
Yeah,
and he's got that resourcefulness. Where like he's not just strong. It's not like he just got strength and now he's like, well, I'm super strong, I can do this. He still has to think about it, and he still has to kind of be tactical with how he uses his abilities, because they will destroy him. What do you think of the Mario references? I thought you'd get a kick out of that.
I liked it a lot more until we started saying they were Mario references. I kind of wish, because I thought it was really fun that we just had the silhouette of a Goomba and a Koopa Troopa and Mario himself, and then, hey, did you ever play Super Mario Brothers? And I was like, no, don't do that. Yeah, it's like that. No, it was a really fun reference. Eric, we are already almost 25 minutes into the show.
Problem.
We should probably move on.
If I can just real quick talk about one thing with that.
But I definitely recommend this. I really enjoyed this.
I'm glad. I just want to talk about real quick. I love the pacing of this series.
Yeah.
A lot of recent manga has gotten so stretched.
This doesn't take us time too much, huh?
By volume 9, we're on to the 4th or 5th arc, depending on how you break things up. Like, that, you're starting, like, the 2nd arc of Naruto. I love how this is paced, because it just keeps moving. By 8...
Are we already a year or two in?
8 is the end of the first school year.
Oh, that's great.
I love the pacing of this. I think a lot of recent manga's gotten really stretched and sloggy, and their arcs take too long, and this is really well paced for manga.
Almost sort of Harry Potter-like? Almost.
Yeah, kind of. Naruto's in many ways the Harry Potter of anime and manga.
Anyway, I was really surprised by how much I enjoyed that.
I'm glad you did. I thought you would like it.
Okay, let's go ahead and move along. And do you want to talk about your other anime thing or your other manga thing next, or should we go to some other things before? Or should we break up the manga?
It's up to you.
It's
your show.
Because I had planned on just doing your next thing. Yeah, let's make sure, because I'm gonna have a bunch of stuff to talk about by myself. So why don't you go ahead and do that next, and then I'll go into some pulls, and then maybe we'll go into another trade after that.
Okay,
go ahead.
All right, I will talk about Gundam Wing: Endless Waltz, Glory of the Losers, this is the first volume.
Just rolls off the tongue.
There's an explanation for that. In the Gundam Wing has a sequel film called Endless Waltz. In Endless Waltz, they completely redesigned all of the robots, and they don't match what came before. So this is a retelling, but they've gone back and redesigned all of the previous robots so that they make sense to become those robots. So it's got Endless Waltz and to let you know that these are alternate designs that match up with Endless Waltz. Doesn't need to be there. Could just be Gundam Wing and Glory of the Losers.
I'm sorry, can I say for a second?
Yeah.
Whoosh!
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
So this is a retelling of the anime Gundam Wing, which is the first Gundam we ever got in America. Gundam Wing is dumb and bad, and I love it.
Is this dumb and bad? This
is dumb and bad.
Okay.
But in a different way.
Review done.
This keeps all the dumb and badness from Gundam Wing that I love.
Okay.
So we get these reveals as you go out through Gundam Wing that don't actually make a lot of sense. And so part of the goal of this series is to retell Gundam Wing and incorporate those ideas initially. So they're not reveals, you know them ahead of time. The problem is they just staple them on. So the premise of Gundam Wing is this thing called Operation Meteor, where these 5 teenage, beautiful, pretty boys drop down to Earth with these giant robots, and they're going to start destroying these military installations because people on Earth are mean to people in space colonies. Is basically what it breaks down to. Space colony people are kind of second-class citizens to people who live on Earth.
So
and they're not happy about
undeserving teenagers.
Later, we discover that the original Operation Meteor was to drop a colony on Earth, and we're just going to get rid of the Earth people. Or at least make them think twice about messing with space people. The problem is, so when that's all backstory, you can assume that there was a discussion that got you from drop a colony to 5 robots. In this, in a single scene, someone already has a giant robot and goes, I don't know how I feel about dropping this whole colony thing and killing all those people. And the guy's like, well, you should do it your way. By the way, your way is exactly what I tell you to do, which is, here's all these places you should go destroy, take your robot, go. And it's just like, so that doesn't make any more sense. And all of the other 4 pilots also got the memo to just take robots and not drop the... It doesn't actually make any more sense. There's a character who we know he's basically an unknown soldier. He has no name. And he gets the name of a famous pacifist or something like that, and his name is Hiro Yui. In this, he is literally about to go on his mission, oh, hey, we should pick a code name for you. What about Hiro Yui? that famous pacifist? And he's like, yeah, sure, whatever. And then he leaves. So, these scenes don't actually make it flow any better. So
why are you reading it, then?
Because I love Gundam Wing.
Okay. Right.
And...
is it kind of fun to have that extra stuff there, even if it's not kind of tacked on?
Yeah, and there's kind of a so bad it's fun kind of a thing to it.
Okay.
And because Gundam Wing isn't good in the first place. I
find that kind of thing usually works better with an audience. I don't know how that translates to the page where you're just sitting under the covers with a nightlight going, tee, this is dumb.
Kind of.
Yeah.
They also redesigned all the Gundams, and I think the redesigns are pretty cool.
While he was under his covers with his little map light.
But the big weird thing that they do with this, because this is not for you if you've never seen Gundam Wing.
Yeah,
even though this is supposed to be a more comprehensive retelling of the series, it assumes...
you wouldn't understand why that random stuff's tacked on.
Well, not only that, but... So they decide to open with a different of the 5 protagonists as your point of view character. So, in the series, you open with Hiro, and you watch Hiro, and you meet the other protagonists.
Okay.
In this, they pick to go through Duo, which makes a certain amount of sense because he's the coolest and most liked of those characters. The problem is, when you get to the hero stuff that's important to the plot and characters that will be important later, they assume you know who they are and they introduce them in one scene. So, in the show, there's this whole thing where Hiro meets this girl, and if you see someone who pilots a Gundam, they have to kill you because no one can know who the pilots are. So he joins her school to get close to her so that he can kill her.
So it's like robot mafia?
Not really.
Okay.
Because they're kind of the good guys. They're also kind of terrorists. It's a thing that hasn't aged well about Gundam Wing.
You've told me about that. Yeah, okay.
So he has this... So he meets this girl and he joins her class, and it takes 4 episodes in the anime. In this, it is 1 page because we didn't lead with him meeting her. So it's just 1 page where he's introduced in her class. We get a flashback page that shows that she saw him getting out of the robot, and then the funniest thing ever, which is in the anime and is the greatest thing ever, which is because she's in love with him for some reason.
If I had a dime for
so she gives him an invitation to her birthday party. He rips it up. Then she cries. He wipes the tear off her face, dramatically walks away, and says, "I will kill you." And
that is not what my face would look like if you said that to me.
They're just the prettiest boys.
She's like, oh.
Yeah. No, she's in love with him. There's a point later when he leaves her alone.
He can do anything.
Yeah. There's a point where he leaves her alone for a little bit, and
lop her legs off. He must have had a good reason.
She goes out to the edge of a cliff and just starts yelling for him. She's like, "I'm right here! Come and kill me!" It's weird. It's dumb. It's bad. But I do love it.
Wow.
It's not good. If you like Gundam Wing...
Do you have a nostalgia thing with that?
Oh, absolutely. No, absolutely.
You grew up with Gundam?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's... And even going back to the anime, the anime's not good either. The anime doesn't hold up either. it's also dumb. Like, that scene is directly
it's hard
in
to
the
be
anime.
critical of it, where it's like, you know what the problems are, but you just don't care.
Yeah. There's one other major thing I wanted to mention. I'm trying to remember what it is now. There's one other big, like, oh, and this is dumb. But it's just... It's supposed to be a more comprehensive read, but you can't read it if you've never read it, if you've never seen the anime, and if you have read the anime, it's not like they fixed anything.
Yeah.
It's not like anything's better. The mech redesigns are cool. There's a couple of visual things that they did where it's like, okay, so these are cheaper versions of that, and you made that more clear visually. That's nice. I probably won't talk about Volume 2, because I will probably read that over the next week, because unless something drastically different changes, where I'm like, oh no, okay, so they're just getting that stuff out of the way, and now we're really retelling the story.
Or you find another scene that is as great as I'm going to kill you. I still come get me. Then you have to bring it back if it's got something like that.
Sure, we'll just create a segment where it's just like weird scenes from Gundam Wing.
Yeah.
But yeah,
the series.
If you like Gundam Wing...
But if we do that, we have to give it a name like this.
Yeah,
just keep going.
Gundam Wing and this Waltz, Glory of the Losers.
It's got to go past
weirdest scene.
The character limit in the title bar. Yeah.
If you like Gundam Wing or you grew up with... Because Gundam Wing is really important. It's our first Gundam. I think for a whole generation, it was probably their first piloted robots outside of Power Rangers, where they're legitimately like piloted like planes.
Yeah.
Like... Gundam Wing is really important for America, less so for Japan, because they had a bunch of Gundam series before that. And a lot of people have nostalgic memories for it. I think a lot of people just have not gone back to it. Go back to it. It's hilarious. Like, it doesn't make sense. If you want Gundam Wing in manga form, it's here. I think this is going to end up being 10 volumes. It's 10 volumes in Japan. We have 2 so far.
Are you going to keep buying them?
I'm going to keep buying them. I'm going to keep reading them.
Well, as you said earlier, you're able to get those kind of cheap. So
yeah, it's stupid melodrama, but I like it.
I sometimes enjoy that too. Yeah. This does not.
I also love that there's no idea how bad it is, and there's a sequel novel. There's a sequel novel series that the creator of the show wrote that I was never able to get because it's only in Japan. But the new Blu-ray set is going to have that novel redone by the voice actors, and it's the worst fan fiction. They all have kids, except for Hiro, who has been cryogenically frozen and has been named his codename Sleeping Beauty.
Oh no!
Like, it's the worst fan fiction. Also, almost all Gundams rename the time. Like, the original Gundam is Universal Century. Like, we reset time.
Oh, okay.
Which makes sense. I like the idea that when we start living in space, that's a big enough event that we'd rename our time. I think that's a cool idea.
Yeah, it's BC 80 again.
Yeah, the problem is for Gundam Wing is that they are in After Colony 195, and the sequel series that takes place about 30 years later, they reset time again to After Mars. It's AM. That's not how we would do that.
No, and if I was going to do that, I would eventually get to it again so I could come up with some contrivance to do PM, because that's hilarious. Yeah, but, AM and PM. After Mars, Pacific Mars, you know.
So, I read that. I enjoyed it. It's not good. So yeah, that's my review of Gundam Wing Endless Waltz Glory of the Losers, which I actually really dig the title Glory of the Losers.
No,
it's
that's
unfortunate
cool.
that it's...
If that was the title.
Yeah.
All by its lonesome.
Yep.
Eric, are you ready to go through some singles? Let's go through some singles. Eric's just got a couple. I've got quite a few. I'm going to do a couple,
got 2.
And then you can talk about one of yours, so that it's not just...
Well, one of mine
forever.
we both read, so...
No, I know. We'll save that for the end, I think. But anyway, so let me just go ahead and start with the tick number 1. I read this a couple weeks ago, so I'm not real fresh on this. But this is written by Cullen Bunn and a friend of his named Jimmy Z. And I don't know where one begins and one ends. I've not seen a lot of co-written stuff with Cullen Bunn.
I've seen things... it's Jimmy Zed.
I've seen things where Cullen Bunn has kind of jumped off of somebody else's work, like Remender with Venom. But I haven't seen a lot of this where he's like working with someone. So I'm assuming that a lot of the dialogue is probably Jimmy Z, but I have no way of knowing. And the art is done by a gentleman named Douglas Paskiewicz, who I'm not familiar with. And the art in this is just okay. It's ultra cartoony.
I don't really like it.
It's the tick you expect, super cartoony. And I should mention that this is canonical with the Tick comics going all the way back, and so it's trying to do that flavor and the recent flavor of the old bi-monthly series. This is bi-monthly. This is going to be 6 issues a year, and it's kind of the flavor of that last series, but I don't think it's as good.
It's too under detailed. That's what I don't like about the art.
Yeah, it's too under detailed. I don't like the colors. I just think
it's very flat.
It's too muted. Yeah, I agree with that. And there's not enough going on in the backgrounds. What's really annoying is it has a backup feature that has a really cool art style that I wish was just a book. Where I mean, it's night and day. And I don't mean that Tick has to always look like this, but when you look at The Box, that gives me flashbacks to one of the worst horror films I've ever seen. But I mean, like you look at this art,
this looks great.
And suddenly we have something we haven't had a whole lot with the Tick. Where I don't know. That's not fair. Edlin's stuff's
super detailed.
Edlin's
stuff's amazing.
I mean, not this isn't as good as that, and this looks too done in a computer, I think, color-wise. But and again, not a lot of detail going on in the backgrounds, but it's got some depth and texture to it. Mm. But anyway, so not a big fan of the artwork. The story itself is not terrible, but I don't love it. This was kind of disappointing for me. I got to be honest with you. My issues with this start with Bun and or Jimmy Z don't have the best voice for these characters, and if you can't nail the Tick, there's just no reason to do it. I know that sounds awful, but the Tick has a really specific voice, and this just sounds like somebody trying to do the Tick. I think I'm really critical of that, partly because we haven't messed it up much in the TV shows. I mean, like, if you really think about it, you have a bunch of different people writing that character in the shows, and very few episodes of any of the 3 TV shows have ever not pretty much nailed the Tick's voice.
I mean, you've got issues with the first live-action one where, like, that doesn't sound like this Tick, that sounds like comic book Tick.
Yeah,
but it's not that character.
Here and there, but the word choice is not really. This is trying too hard. I think it's overwritten, and which is weird because there's not a whole lot of. It doesn't look like there's a lot of words on the page, but here, I mean, it's just some of it feels a little bit overwritten to me. Arthur says things the Tick says, and I don't like that. Arthur 2 or 3 times refers to his genitals as unmentionables. That's what the Tick says, and there are places where it feels like. They're trying to get brownie points for pulling lines people like from the TV shows. I don't really care for that. Like do your own thing, but make it authentic. And I don't feel like I feel like these guys are struggling really hard to do authentic Tick. I was worried about Colin Bunn. I didn't know if his comedic sensibilities were quite right for the Tick. I'm not sure if you're great at Deadpool, you'll be great at the Tick, and that's kind of what I'm reading on the page. I mean, yes, that is a reservation I had, so I came in with that bias, but I was hoping to be won over, and I was not quite won over. My other major issue with this, where my issues kind of end with this, is it's doing something that I don't know that anybody but Edlin should ever get to do, which is at least suggesting possible things about the Tick's origin, and it kind of acts like it's going to maybe reveal some answers to goofy but long wondered about questions like why the Tick speaks French and some things like that, and yeah, that's kind of in there. What's with the Viewmaster? There's a bunch of stuff like that where it seems like they're maybe going to do an origin thing, and I don't want that. Edlin really is the only person,
especially if this isn't
who should get to
up
do that.
To the quality of some of the other Tick comics.
This
exactly isn't the one that gets to do it.
I like Frackerzog running his own diner. I think that's really funny.
You know what this looks like? It looks like a newspaper strip.
Yeah.
It looks like the Tick newspaper strip.
I agree with that. Yeah. So anyway, I'm not real impressed with this. I will keep buying it because of course I collect the Tick. And I will. He's not talking about the Tick right now.
Sorry.
Would you not get ahead of me, please? I'm still talking about this. But yeah, I'm not. I don't know. For folks that aren't big giant diehard Tick fans, I'm not recommending this.
Is that an homage to the Million Zillion Ninjas cover?
I don't know that it's an homage.
Okay.
Really, yeah. It doesn't look a whole lot like any cover I'm familiar with. But it's been a while since I've looked at those covers, and I have those in trade, not all of them so I don't know those covers super well. The original, I have to say, like the original Edlin covers, like I know them, but there might be a cover that looks a lot like that, and I'm just not thinking of it right. But anyway. Okay, moving right along. I want to talk a little bit about Metal. There's a bunch of Metal tie-ins. I'm buying all of them. I haven't read all of them yet. I'm caught up with the main series. There's a whole lot I could say about this. I'm not going to get real deep into this until it's all said and done, and I can talk about it all as a piece, of course, but I'm just loving this. I'm loving everything about it. This is very much not in the way I think he's talked about it. Like Scott Snyder's talked about paying off a whole bunch of stuff that like he always meant to do, you know, getting up into this event. I'm not sure how true that is. I don't know how much of what is in Metal was stuff that he always had in the back of his mind, but this feels like very much the culmination of everything Snyder and Capullo did, in the sense that it's kind of the best thing they've done, in my mind anyway. It's not going to tickle everybody's sensibilities. It's not going to be for everybody.
So are you liking this more than Zero Year?
They're not comparable things,
okay.
Really. I mean, Zero Year's such a different sort of story.
That's true.
And this is so much my kind of cup of tea. You know how you and I did an entire GNN about how we're doing too much multiversal stuff right now, and how like we can't get away from that, and because we do it too often and we keep trying to get bigger and bigger and bigger, we've kind of deflated the whole thing. This makes it fresh again. It's everything I've always loved about Elseworlds things, but pulling it all together and making it all canon. You know, it's kind of like, in a way, it's like doing Flashpoint again, better, and not in a gimmicky way where the point of it is just to get to the end and get to a new status quo. Like, the point of this is just to have a big, giant, insane romp get as big and wild as humanly possible, and have
fun with it,
making the reader keeping us guessing. I can't call this book and never know where it's going to go, and just when I think, like, I never feel like, oh, I've seen that before, or if I have, it doesn't feel derivative. It just feels like everything's got a really fresh spin in it. This is a really obvious thing to say, and you said this right at the beginning, like you were hoping that metal meant like metal, like that's so metal, like heavy metal. It reads like everybody working on these, and the tie-ins are this way too. And by the way, tie-ins more consistent than I've ever read with tie-ins. I mean, like, I feel the need to read all of it, because it's all up to the same quality of fun.
Yeah, I've heard great stuff about all the tie-ins,
but also of it just feeling like it has a big giant scope. It feels like everybody involved in this is drawing with one hand and doing this in the other hand, just the entire time. This has some pretty cool ideas in it too. Like it's easy to just say this is cool because it's nuts and it's way out there, and you have evil Batmans, and you have all these different Batmans that are like based on different characters. There's a Wonder Woman Batman, and there's an Aquaman Batman. There's all these different Batmans from different worlds. But this is attacking that cynicism idea head on, and in the most obvious and physical kind of way, but it gets away with it because this is all about being the opposite of understated. I just think all of that works. Like, it's using a physical darkness as a metaphor for like figurative darkness that seems to be taking people over and making people think that like you can't be, altruistic and good to people and stuff. And it does it with this really fun metaphor of it's kind of like the nothing from the Never-Ending Story, where you have the dark universe, or the dark multiverse. We thought we understood the multiverse. Turns out there's a whole other multiverse that's the dark multiverse. And one of my favorite scenes is in the first issue where they flip the map over and it's the dark universe. It's great. It takes itself so seriously, but it doesn't at all. It's really cool that it's able to find that balance. One of my issues with Snyder sometimes is he feels a little bit too self-serious. This doesn't read that way. It's almost like at the same time, and I'm able to take this within the context of itself perfectly seriously. I don't know if anything I'm saying right now makes any sense. This is just the what it feels like reading this. It's almost like he's making fun of himself. It's like it's like he's really mellowed out, where he doesn't need to change hearts and minds with this, and by doing that, by making it just so outlandish and fun, and everybody in this is taking it really seriously, but he's clearly having the time of his life, he's saying some stuff too. And I really appreciate that. There's some really interesting stuff about what the difference between Batman and Superman is. It's really tackling, and we've been doing this a lot lately, but this does it in a really fresh way. Tackling the question of whether Batman causes more harm than he does good. Tackling that head on, and the idea is all of the bad Batmans, the evil Batmans, are supposed to be like his fears personified, but then there's this big question of, is it his fears, or is it his desires, or is it somehow some combination of both of those things? And I'm finding that really interesting, and what it's doing for the mythology, I think, is fascinating. It's adding new things to the mythology in broadening out something that you already thought was big enough that you could never get any broader with, that I think will stick. It makes the Phantom Zone, for instance, directly connected to and a lot like the Dark Multiverse. Like they're like related things.
Oh, interesting.
And I think that's really interesting. The pseudoscience in this is really cool. And I don't know, like the rules are consistent enough. It makes you want to know everything there is to know about it. It's a thing that's really easy to sink its teeth into. It's hard to believe that this is this good and Morrison's not writing it, because it's such a Morrison kind of thing, and he builds a lot on Morrison, obviously, with the multiverse and what it has to do with Batman being sent back in time and all of that stuff. I will say this is not a fully accessible thing. I think there's a lot of people that if they don't know DC, if you don't know DC through and through, and I don't want to say I do, there's stuff I don't know, but I mean, like you will run into characters where you're like, okay, I feel like I need to make a chart to like keep track of everybody that's in there.
I want an evil Captain Carrot.
I don't think he goes that far. But anyway, I'm really enjoying this.
I've been hearing great things. I'd like to try and catch up on that.
Yeah.
And maybe if I read that and we both read through all the tie-ins, maybe next week we can talk about the tie-ins and stuff.
A little bit, but I don't want to talk too much more about it until it's over.
Okay.
So that we can do, you know.
Even the tie-ins?
Yeah, I mean, we can check in the tie-in. That's a good idea. But I just don't want to say everything we would. I want to exhaust everything we would want to talk about before we get to talk about it all together. So anyway, this is probably the event I have enjoyed the most in a really long time. I want to say since, I don't know.
Have you ever enjoyed an event since you got in the comics? Like, has there been an event you really liked?
Yeah, absolutely. I liked Original Sin a lot.
Oh, yeah, you did.
I thought it was quite good. Obviously, I liked things about Flashpoint.
Yeah, you were enjoying Flashpoint.
I like the tie-ins a lot. And you know this about me. I love Secret Wars. Love
You
Secret
do
Wars.
love. Yeah, I forgot that.
Yeah. So, no, there's stuff.
And you liked Axis well enough. I also liked Axis well enough.
Axis was okay. Axis lost me. It got a little goofy.
See, Axis got me. I thought the beginning was bad, and then I'm like, everyone's inverted. That's really cool. And like, I was having fun with Zenpool.
Oh, and I like AVX.
Yeah,
I like AVX a lot. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, there's stuff.
It's easy to feel like there was never any good events.
That's because
and then
there's
when you
too
go
many.
back through it, you're like, oh yeah, no, AVX was good. I liked Axis. I didn't read Secret Wars, but you say it's really
good. Yeah, that's
good.
because for every one of those really good ones, you get three like. I can never remember the name of that. The thing that was trying to get us out of 52 that everybody hated was around when DC lost like $2 million.
It starts with a C.
Conversions.
Yeah,
you get like 3 convergences. Well, that's not fair because convergence is about as bad as it gets, I think. But
I mean, and I'm the biggest fan of Planet Fear itself.
Well, I say it's about as bad as it gets. Secret Empire is really bad, but for different reasons. Anyway, moving right along, let's talk about some other stuff real briefly.
I love these covers. These covers are amazing.
Yeah, DC
Another
and Marvel,
lenticular.
both are all about this lenticular, let's go back and forth between something. This one's really cool. I like it a lot. This is Superman into Jor-El. So the Oz Effect is, we're in the third part of Oz Effect. This is Action Comics. This is Dan Jurgens, of course, with art by guy who's trying to look like Greg Capullo. Art is Victor Danovic. He does a good job, but wouldn't you agree? He's aping Capullo hard.
Oh no, he's aping Capullo really hard.
That's what he's doing.
He's doing to Capullo what Capullo started out as with McFarlane.
Except I don't know why he feels the need to, because surely nobody's telling him you have to look like Capullo.
Well, it's that thing, right? It's working for Batman. Let's try it with Superman.
Yeah, but at this point, Capullo is so big the name sells as much as the art does.
That's
I don't know
true.
why you would do that. But anyway, so spoiler alert, we're already 3 issues into this, so I'll talk about it. Mr. Oz is Jor-El or someone claiming to be Jor-El. We all assumed it would be Ozymandias because we know we're getting into Doomsday Clock, and we thought there was supposed to be a character gallivanting around that already was a Watchmen character. It might turn out to still be Ozymandias because Dan Jurgens really likes, and I mean, if this is already information that people have, if they've already spoiled it and I don't know, I haven't looked up anything about this. So this is just me reading this. So if anybody gets in the comments like, we know already, don't tell me, I don't want to know. I want to read it for myself. But anyway, not that I'm loving this or anything, but I'd like to read it for myself. But Dan Jurgens has been doing a lot of these kind of mistaken identity things lately. He did this with like the other Clark Kent, where it turns out to be a Mixelplick. I could kind of see that happening with this, where it's a guy claiming to be Jor-El gone bad, and then it turns out that it's Ozymandias from another dimension. Especially because his plot is very Ozymandias-like, sort of. He's trying to prove that humanity is not worthy of Superman's love and attention, and so he's doing things to make them all turn on each other. He's got that very Joker philosophy, they'll eat each other, except he thinks he's above it, and he's, I don't know, it's a little bit interesting because his philosophy, apparently, if he's who he says he is, I hope he's not, honestly. I don't want this to be Jor-El, especially because we did this kind of thing with Zor-El already with Cyborg Superman. I don't need both of them to go evil and pretend to be somebody else, but he would be pretending to be somebody else even if it was Jor-El, because he called himself Mr. Oz.
What if he stays looking exactly the same as he is, and he just starts referring to himself as Cyborg Superman?
Well, that would be stupid. We already have 2 of those in this continuity. We don't need a 3rd one. But anyway, so he is... I say his plot is Ozymandias-like in that he wants to kind of tear down humanity, but not exactly to build it back up again. He says humanity's hopeless, they have no hope, so I guess he just wants them to rip themselves apart at the end, and he's trying to get Superman to run off with him, and the big reveal at the end of this is the place where he wants him to go, and you can read it for yourself to see what that's like. I don't know what to take from it yet, so it wasn't really a big, great reveal to me. But anyway... I don't know where we're going with this. If it actually is Jor-El, that's a bummer. I don't really want that to be the case, and I've been really lukewarm on this book lately anyway, but it's where some of the big important things are happening, so I've been reading. I need to go back and read the Superman arc that just ended, because I've been going back and forth on these. I haven't been buying everything. I've been kind of just going arc to arc to see what I'm interested in. I bought this because I thought it was related to the Watchmen thing, and I thought it would be important, so I felt the need to read it. I don't know where I sit on the Watchmen thing. It's a thing that I wish they weren't doing, but I'm still sort of intrigued, and I'll enjoy it for what it is if I'm liking it.
I'm super anti the Watchmen thing.
Yeah.
I think it's completely artistically, morally deprived, and is a complete... and it's... Not only are they going to have to get over the fact that they're being, real, artistic hacks, but they're following Metal.
Uh-huh.
And everyone's loving Metal. I haven't read it, but everyone's
Honestly,
loving that.
I don't know if Metal will even totally be over by the time it starts, will it? Because it starts in middle or toward the end of November. It's next month, isn't it? Or is it later than that? Maybe it's later than that.
I'm not sure. I think it's November.
Now.
No, I think it is November.
Isn't it November? That's what I thought.
But yeah,
this is Metal's what? Double shipping or?
No, I think it's just once a month.
Metal?
I think so.
I think it's more often than that. Maybe
okay.
Maybe one. Maybe one.
But yeah, no, I kind of fall on the side of much like Before Watchmen, which I didn't read.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's good. It shouldn't exist.
I don't. Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think it should exist either. But then I get curious. Isn't that awful? I'm kind of part of the problem. I guess I should.
But you also love Watchmen a lot more than me.
But yeah, the problem is, I don't need that to exist. I don't necessarily think it should exist. But then, if it ends up being really cool, I don't want to have missed it. I don't know. Is it okay to just enjoy getting to see the art and that world again, even if you don't think they should make it? Isn't that... I don't know. I don't know if that's awful or not. But
in the time since Before Watchmen, I've never had an inkling where I'm like, maybe I should go check out the Before Watchmen thing. But it was also received lukewarm.
Yeah, and the thing with me with that was I bought the ones that I thought looked really interesting, and some of them I sort of liked okay, and the only one that I thought was really pretty darn good was Minutemen, but I didn't read even all of that. I lost interest. I didn't read all that stuff. Can we do an aside real quick?
Sure.
I was talking to you about this earlier. This is what Jetsons looks like.
Ooh!
They are updating the Jetsons. They're doing a 6-issue miniseries. They're doing kind of Jetsons for adults, like they're doing with Flintstones, which is funny because of course Flintstones was a sitcom for adults in the first place. But I mean, for now in today's modern sensibilities, I think it looks like Fantastic Four.
Okay, here's the thing. I think it looks like what I would think an updated Jetsons would look like in the 90s. This looks
really?
like 90s.
Okay.
This looks like
the Real Adventures of
Johnny
Quest. That's what I was going to say.
That's what it looks like. It doesn't look like it's updated to now. It looks like it's updated to then, being the 90s.
That's fair.
But no, I'm intrigued.
But that kind of makes some degree of sense considering that they built everything kind of around Johnny Quest and with what the Hanna-Barbera Future Quest stuff has been doing. But I'm going to give that a shot. I think I'm going to try that.
I've wanted
really cool.
to try most of those. I really want to try Future Quest. I want to try Scooby-Doo Apocalypse. I want to try Wacky Racers. I've tried none of them. but I need to.
Okay, so I was going to save this to the end, but since I've been talking for a while, why don't we just go ahead and jump into Shadow Batman?
Sure.
So we just finished Batman Shadow.
Well, we haven't.
And no, we as in the industry just put out the last issue of Batman Shadow, which the 5 of 6 issues I read, I thought was just one of the best crossovers ever. It's
loved
wonderful.
it so much.
Did you read the last issue?
I did not.
Okay, I haven't read it yet either.
No. That's what I'm saying. Neither of us have finished it, but we both really liked it.
And part of the reason I didn't go ahead and read it for today is I kind of want to read it all together when I finally talk about it.
Me too, and we should do a whole thing on it.
Maybe next week that'll be a thing to do. We should write that down, but maybe we'll
read through the whole thing.
That's the thing we'll do next time. But we'll make that one of if not the featured book next week.
Sure.
But Shadow Batman is doing the '90s thing. We haven't done this in a really long time, where you have two companies that that cross over, and one makes its title first, and then the other one second, and then the other one does the same thing but flipped, and they're two totally different stories, and usually they're not related in any way.
And one of them's the main. So DC published Batman Shadow. Dynamite is publishing Shadow Batman.
Yeah,
and it's the same writer, which is why I was excited about it.
Now, to be fair, we did kind of do this with Ninja Turtles and Batman.
But I think IDW published both of them, didn't they?
I'm not sure about that. The DC one, well, maybe they did. Yeah, now that you say that, I thought they did.
But I might be wrong.
But anyway, so it's weird to see that come back, where we're not just doing one mini, we're doing 2 back to back. Anyway, I don't know what to think of this. I didn't really care for this at all.
I didn't
off
care for it. It feels like the first chapter of a graphic novel.
It does. Yeah, I can't. Really
feel like there's so much I'm not being given.
I don't have anything to grab onto that seems that seems like new or fresh or like really interesting about putting these two characters together, because Shadow's just kind of lurking in the background.
He's in like one page
of a book that has his name in front of Batman. You open it, it's just a Batman comic, and with all the trappings of modern Batman that I don't care about. It's all about Batman's relationship with Damian Wayne, and it's got Professor Pig, and these are all characters I don't care about.
Okay.
So this just all a lot of this is taste issues, but also there's nothing spectacular yet about the writing or anything. It's just right now it's just a Batman. It's just a really standard Batman story.
Okay, so specifically about Professor Pig and Damian.
Yeah.
So I'm interested in what they're doing with Damian, because this isn't in continuity, so they could potentially take Damian to a darker place than they can take him in regular comics, and I think that's interesting. I like that I think he's the one that's masterminding certain things, but then it seems like he's not. He's just discovered that someone is Moriarty of crime, kind of a thing. I didn't fully understand that, but I think it's kind of interesting. But I also don't feel like I'm supposed to. I feel like I'm getting pieces of the thing. I think Professor Pig makes perfect sense as a villain to throw in with Shadow.
Okay.
He feels like a Shadow villain to me.
Yeah, that's
it feels like someone that makes sense for Batman and Shadow to fight.
It's just not a thing I get excited about. I don't know, that's all I'm saying.
But Shadow doesn't show up, really.
Yeah.
And I like it.
I think it could be interesting to see Shadow trying to mentor Damian, and Shadow being the thing that makes Damian go too far.
Oh, and of course, because Damian would gravitate more towards the Shadow style than Batman style. There's a thing there.
There's a thing there.
We're not doing that yet.
I don't know if that's what we're going to do, but I don't know. Like 6 issue, obviously, you get a lot of minis. I like that a lot of these crossovers these days are 6 instead of 4, but it doesn't feel like we get enough done even for a 6-issue mini. It feels like this ought to be 8, just reading the first issue. The only reason I'm going to keep going with this is because I bought the last one, and I like symmetry. I want to have them both. I hope the next issue grabs me, because I didn't care about this at all. I'm going to forget what happens in this tomorrow.
I think one thing that annoys me is I can't tell if it's a sequel or not.
Yeah.
Because Batman and Shadow don't meet, so I don't know if Batman and Shadow have met.
But it is definitely... I'm going to guess it's not going to have anything to do with that last miniseries, but... I do like that they're still doing the thing where they just both exist in the same universe at the end.
Yeah, it's disappointing because the first issue of Batman Shadow was like a real oh man, did you read Batman Shadow? Like, that was great. This isn't that. This is.
It felt like something that would take longer than your average comic to write.
Yeah, and this feels like a much more complex
something really
story.
Special.
And I don't know if that's going to work or not. Like, this feels like it's giving me a lot of pieces for a mystery that I'm not even aware of what the mystery is.
And it's just weird that the book that has the Shadow's name first doesn't feel as stylized as the other book. Like the other book...
And it is a different artist.
The other book is drawn and even written more like a Shadow book than a Batman book.
And it's interesting because the Batman Shadow had Snyder as co-writer.
Yeah.
And this feels more Snyderian, or what Snyder has done to Batman. This feels more like it's living in that world, whereas the other one just felt like classic Batman.
I think it feels like Tomasi or something. Like,
yeah, it's not.
Or who's the guy who wrote Batman Eternal?
Oh,
well,
Tynion?
I guess
you talking about Tynion the
yeah,
Fourth?
I mean, I guess there were 3 or 4 people, but yeah, it reads like Tynion to me.
Yeah, well, Tynion wrote the Ninja Turtles Batman you love, but
well, I mean, it's not brilliant or anything. I like it. I love it.
Actually,
that review hasn't gone up yet, but me and...
Didn't you like it less going back through?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Deadpoolzilla and I have done a long-form review of that. We haven't posted it yet.
But,
I should mention that. There's some stuff in the can that will still come out after Omnibus.
Yeah. I liked it, I think, more than you, but I'm not sold on, like, it's...
It is weird that it's the same writer. It feels like a totally different kind
of... It reads much more like what I
mean, versatility is great.
The original mini would.
Yeah.
Where, like, the original mini was so classic Batman and classic Shadow, and it really felt...
But how high are our standards now? Because that book is so amazing.
That's true.
And because of just what Shadow looks like right now anyway. I read the first issue of the new Shadow ongoing, and it's just killer. It's really interesting.
I've got to grab that from you then.
I read at the shop. I
don't
have a
bummer.
copy. Yeah, I don't have a copy. Sorry.
Okay, because I was really excited for that book.
I was really impressed with it. Yeah, I don't collect.
You remember
Shadow,
the 3 months they just kept saying Shadow at Dynamite, and we didn't know who was writing it or what it was. But
I wasn't even sure that I would buy the Shadow Batman books. But I read that first issue and was just enamored with it, and so I hadn't bought all of it. And so now I'm going to buy this because I bought that. Okay, so I'm going to keep going. I'll talk briefly. I don't want to do a full giant review of this, but I have read the rest now of Captain Phasma. And
how's that?
It's better than it was at the beginning.
That's good.
I thought this was so boring at the beginning. Why, really? Your POV character is going to be just a stormtrooper? Like, what is interesting about that? Okay, she's in charge, but she doesn't have any personality of her own. She's just kind of a drone-like character. You have to keep reading, and I wish we could have gotten some kind of an inkling in the first issue. That's my biggest issue with this, is that in the first issue, there's not any kind of an inkling that there's more to her than meets the eye, and by the end, there is. The whole thing about this book is about the contradiction between a character like this who works for a fascist dictatorship, or I guess a group of people who are really trying to recreate a fascist dictatorship with the First Order, that believes in their philosophy and in order and oppression for the sake of order and all of that, but is trumped by her obsession with staying alive. And it's impossible to put those two things together and for her to really be an effective general, I guess, captain in the First Order, because she's supposed to put herself completely on the line for the sake of the Empire, and she is the First Order, and ultimately she's not willing to do that, so she has to cut up loose ends whenever she survives for the sake of herself and breaks the rules. So this is all about, I didn't even think about it like this. This is all about how she lets Finn hold her at gunpoint in that movie and drops the blast shield and then escapes. And and that would make her a traitor. Like, the fact that she didn't just stand there and let herself get killed or call his bluff, one of the two, actually would make her a traitor, because she's supposed to be a cog in a machine. And so
So they make her main characteristic self-preservation.
Yes. And so she tries to erase the data of that having happened, but there's a character that already got that data, so she goes and tries to hunt him down. And that's what it's about.
So this is actually after Force Awakens?
It is.
So it's immediately a better journey to The Last Jedi
than
right. any of the Journey to the Force Awakens.
Especially because this gives you a really good sense of who this character is and what she's about. And there's a backstory about why she's like that. But there is that tells you a little bit about why she joined the First Order, at the same time as it gives you a sense of why she's got that self-preservation instinct. I have questions about it. You have all these stormtroopers that are kind of like reprogrammed. I don't know why she's not more reprogrammed. I don't know why she still has that in her backstory, but it may end up having to do with something. It may have something to do with the reason that we don't know right now, that's a mystery as to why Finn was able to do it. So to like get away from his programming. So that's a question. I also don't understand why all the peons just get numbers, but she, being a captain, gets a name. I don't get that.
You graduate to a name?
Maybe. That just seems kind of counter to the philosophy. And the philosophy is consistent. Like, there's this scene I like a lot where they go undercover. And she is with this female pilot who seems to have a lot of human compassion and is fighting against that, being a stormtrooper. And when they go undercover, this female pilot tells her, well, maybe we should have names because they're gonna expect us to be called something. And it seems like she is, like, desperate for identity. And Phasma's answer is, okay, you call me captain and I'll call you pilot. And I liked that a lot. My wife may be vindicated. It is possible that it will turn out that Phasma is not what I thought she was.
She may be a robot?
My wife and I have had this argument forever about Phasma being a robot. And I'm like, Phasma can't be a robot. There's that line where Finn's like, I'm going to knock that bucket off your head. She has a head, she's not a robot. I guess it could be a helmet over a robot head.
She could be a replicant.
Sure, no.
Is Phasma a replicant?
But there is a scene, let me see if I can find it, where she takes her helmet off, and they do it in silhouette, and they won't let you see what she looks like.
Maybe she got Darth Vader face.
Maybe, but they make a big deal out of it. And I don't know what it means. But there's this whole page with no words where she's taking her helmet off, and she puts it down, and they won't show you what she looks like. And then you turn the page, and time has passed, and she's just already put this other thing on her head. And I think that's really interesting. So I'm gonna assume that who wrote this? Kelly Thompson. I'm gonna assume that she knows what happens in the next movie and that she's building us up to something. But like you said, at least for this character, it seems like this is a legit like prequel building us up to something.
That's nice.
So yeah, I didn't hate this.
I want to like Phasma, but right now, based on Force Awakens, it seems like if in A New Hope, there's that one stormtrooper who's got like the orange thing, who's like the leader.
It's like
if
that.
They just merchandised the crap out of him. It was like, this is a really important well, but I didn't see anything of importance in the film. What are you talking about?
Well, and of course, the reason they merchandised it like that was because originally this was supposed to be the design for Kylo Ren.
Yes.
Yeah, and then they decided that it wasn't distinct enough and it looked just too much like a stormtrooper, so they made her another character. So, like, Phasma's whole origin is she was costume. She was somebody else's costume. But, dude, one thing I also have to really sell this book on, Marco Cicchetto kills it. This art is just breathtaking.
Oh, yeah.
It's absolutely gorgeous. It's got this kind of psychedelic vibe to it, but it also looks like relentless and terrifying, these landscapes. And there is a whole lot of atmosphere to this, and it reminds me a lot of that Obi-Wan and Anakin book. The art's a lot like that. In fact, that might be the same artist. I don't remember. But it's drawn like that, where it looks a little bit like pastels. But I'm sure it's done on a computer, but it's a little pastel-y, and I really like that look. Anyway, I think that's great. I had a few other things I was going to talk about here, but we are. Where are we here? We're already well past an hour into Comic Vault. So yeah, nice. we spent a long time on that first book. So I think what we're going to go ahead and do is I think I'm going to save some of the rest of this for next time. I was going to talk some more Power Rangers. I was going to talk Batman and White Knight. The second issue of this comes out next week, the week after.
How is that?
It's fascinating.
Interesting.
But I'm not going to talk about it right now. I'm going to we'll take a look at this next time.
Because I love Sean Murphy.
And I'll just say, like I said earlier, Go-Go Power Rangers continues to be to give a lot of depth and dimension to the Power Rangers characters, while providing some really fun and really creative explanations for the goofy stuff that happens in
What's
Power Rangers.
Trini's character thing in this series?
Heights. I mean, that's
does it continue to be Heights?
Yeah. I mean, we haven't done a whole lot with her yet. We're going to go ahead and tackle our last graphic novel for the day real briefly. I don't think we're going to spend a lot of time on this. But in honor of the Buffy anniversary this year, we haven't done any Buffy content yet. We're going to start with this, and then we're going to do some commentaries a little bit later on Buffy and Angel. So today I want to talk about Fray a little bit. This is my first time finally reading this. I always meant to.
And I read this about a year and a half ago.
Okay, cool. So you're a little rusty.
Yeah,
you can talk with me a little bit about it. So Fray is, as I'm sure a lot of folks know, Buffy in the future. It's obviously not that character, but that world. It was Joss Whedon wanting to finally break into comics. This is the first comic book thing Joss Whedon does, if memory serves at all.
I believe so as well.
He talks about that in the in his letter at the beginning, where he's like, I felt like while Buffy was huge while it was on, because this was like 02, 03. He says, I felt like if I was going to do anything in comics, it would probably have to be Buffy, or people wouldn't be that interested in it. So I tried to do all the fun superhero stuff that I always wanted to do in a futuristic Buffy thing. So this is Buffy 2099. That's what it is.
Yep.
The idea here is that it's been a couple hundred years since we've had a Slayer, and there is no magic anymore.
And it's hinted at that Buffy's the last one, right?
Yeah. It's hinted at, only in the sense that she says a couple hundred years, and I don't think he comes right out and gives us a timestamp even, but it's hinted at in that when the monster guy that's training her, the demon guy, gives her a list of Slayers in dreams, and she doesn't know what he's talking about. The last one sounds like Buffy and Sunnydale, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's the last one. I don't know, but anyway. So
I remember getting an implication from this. It's like, oh, is Buffy supposed to be the last Slayer before all this catastrophe?
Maybe so, yeah. And maybe when this came out, you would read it and wonder if there would be something in the show that would connect to it that would get us to that
because
place.
This does come out before the show concludes,
and it is really interesting that we get to a similar status quo in in the season 9 comics, somewhere in there, where we don't have magic anymore. And I don't know if it's supposed to explain what happens here, because we get it back in that, I think. So
we do.
Maybe we just go back and forth. I don't know. I don't know if Fray ultimately ends up making any sense with the rest of the continuity if you count the comics as canon. I don't know.
Well, I mean, the Buffy comics count this as canon.
Yeah, but then after that, I don't know if this future ends up making any sense, or maybe because I haven't read that part of it yet. Maybe the idea is going to end up being that this is just a possible future, and they contradict.
Yeah, I don't remember how they come down.
I have no idea. Anyway, so the idea is that we finally have a new Slayer, but somehow or rather, the Slayer mechanics are different. Where she has a twin, and the mythology of the Slayer, of what the Slayer is, ends up being put between each of them. So she gets all of the strength and the powers, but none of the lore that's passed down. And he gets, and it's interesting because that makes him like half of a male Slayer. He gets the dreams and the knowledge. And something happens earlier in her past where she accidentally, she thinks gets him killed, and it turns out that he got turned into a vampire, which seems to be kind of the twist we always do. But he's a vampire, and he's using his knowledge of the Slayers to wreak havoc and try to open a new Hellmouth, and that's kind of the big threat of the book. And Fray is supposed to be, in my mind, a straight-up split down the middle between Buffy and Faith. She is a complete amalgamation of the two characters.
Yeah, that makes complete sense.
Where she's got a sense of, if not duty, just like she does kind of care about people, but she's also got like a bad girl streak, and she kind of puts herself ahead of other people, and she's really conflicted. One thing I like about her character is this idea that she's sort of like the guy we were talking about earlier. She's kind of too hard on herself. Through the whole thing, she keeps swearing up and down she's not a hero. She does heroic things.
She's kind of Aladdin-y.
Yeah, sure.
Where she's like a
to survive,
but I think even more so than Aladdin, where like Aladdin kind of makes excuses for himself. She doubles down on that she's not good enough.
Yeah. And even at the end, she's not, I'm not a hero, where I think she's kind of solidified herself straight up. Like, I don't really know what the difference is between her and Buffy that much by the end of this, except that she's got that road to redemption thing. She kind of has to follow, sort of like Faith does, but she's already kind of made up for a lot of it by the end. And she says, by the end of this, she says, I don't know if I'm going to keep being a thief or not. I don't know if I'm going to do that or just, fight vampires and be a hero, but I'm not a hero. She keeps stressing that. I think this is a fine origin story.
It's a great pilot.
The story's not over. and we never get the rest of it. I mean, I know that they go back to it apparently in season 8. I've never read that, and so it's cool they do a follow-up, but I don't know why Whedon wrote this way, knowing he wasn't intending on writing anymore. I wish it was a more solid story.
Even if he came back and
I'm not
did,
saying there's not a character arc for her, but I feel like it's not over. I feel like there's a lot of loose threads and stuff.
Even if he came back and just did like 2 more minis and made it a trilogy.
Yeah.
Like,
That'd be great.
When I read this...
We don't flesh out the world enough, most certainly, and we don't get enough of a sense of why the mythology has changed.
My big takeaway is this is a pilot for a Buffy series that we never got.
Yeah, that's how I...
It's really unfortunate because I like it. I think it's good.
I like it too. I like the sense of style and atmosphere a lot. I don't even mind how derivative it is of other 90s-esque futuristic things. It does feel very much like Batman Beyond or 2099. And I think it's fun that in that letter at the beginning, Whedon comes right out and says, like, I don't really have a take on the future. Like, it's just kind of what everybody else does. He says, rich people just get richer and there are flying cars, the end, you know? And that is kind of what it looks like. But he could have done more social commentary with that. I mean, you might risk retreading, you know, where Peter David has already gone with that and some other people like that, because David had a real take that ends up being kind of like the thing that becomes cliche. But like I feel like he had a real take with 2099. This is influenced by that heavily. Even if Whedon didn't read that, it got enough into the zeitgeist of comics. He's influenced by that and some other futuristic things. I don't want to give Peter David too much credit, but I feel like there is a lot of that here.
Because I mean, Spider-Man 29 is obviously very influenced by the cyberpunk stuff of the 80s and whatnot.
Yeah, of course. But the look of it, I mean, if not Whedon, the guy drawing this.
Yeah.
Carl Moline. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I feel like you said this reads like the pilot for a series. This would make a great like HBO animated show. You know, like I felt like I was reading something that would be the blueprint for a Buffy animated pilot.
Or do you think possibly this could be the first movie in a series of movies? Like if Whedon wanted to keep doing Slayer stuff but not on TV, could he just take this and go, this is Fray 1?
Maybe so. I have the same thing I do with Batman Beyond, where I don't have any excitement about seeing that translated to live action.
Well, I just meant because this is kind of a story.
No, I know, I agree with you, and you're right. Like, just premise-wise, that makes a lot of sense, but I like the stylistic nature of what it looks like. I guess the point I'm trying to make is, I feel like he did, to his credit, really envision this as a comic book. Like, he did a really good job of coming up with a premise and a style that makes sense in this medium in a way it wouldn't as well on television in live action. I think animated, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I just like that he's working very much within the medium he's doing. Because, again, this isn't a thing where he's like, I've got this big idea that I don't have enough money to make on TV. It's, I want to make a comic book. Yeah. And you can really see that here. And that's great. And it's drawn that way, too. And so that's the thing I really like about it. But I just don't think there's enough of it. I just think it should have kept going.
I agree completely. I remember an issue I had with it was that a lot of the Whedon reversals felt predictable for some reason more in comics. Like, at the end of issue 1, there's the big monster behind her. I'm like, well, that's not going to be a scary monster. Then you flip the page, it's not scary.
That's fair. I had it too. But the twist is pretty good where he turns out to be actually, well, on her side, but he's like manipulating things. He's doing the bad things for the right reasons. He's got that whole thing going on.
But the Whedon character death still really got to me.
Yep. He's still great at that.
Yeah, I was like, oh man, I feel really bad. This person's dead.
No, that's great. And it happens pretty early.
Does it? I thought it happened late. Like it's like the beginning of third act kind of a thing, isn't it?
Are you talking about the kid?
I'm talking about the kid.
No, it's earlier than that.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
okay.
It's earlier than that.
Because I remember being really gut punched by that. I'm like, oh my god, he killed a kid.
Yeah. I think it's a little bit earlier than that. But anyway, but yeah, all in all, I'm glad I finally read this. I'm excited to read that part in season 8 because we're gonna cover that at some point.
Yeah. We would like to hopefully sometime this year cover that for the 20th, but.
Well, folks, if you're just watching the Comic Vault portion, that's going to be it for us today. Eric and I are going to continue with our omnibus on. You
got a big double-sized, triple-sized video just on its own.
You sure did, just by its lonesome. You're welcome, folks. We're going to go on now to some movies and do some How We Felt About, and we will see everybody else later on. Yeah.